Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Brief. This is where we give you some of the latest and greatest insights on what's been happening in the last week of our industry. Well, this is going to be a fun episode because we have a lot of highlights from Paris Fashion Week, looking at the spring summer collections of 2026. Boy, it was so fascinating. Some of the overarching themes that we saw overall, a lot of warnings of change coming, kind of a lot of alien space themes, a lot of vintage being woven, and it was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, great shows. I mean, I think, the overarching theme certainly was change, and we saw that through a lot of different collections. I think it was a study in contrast, tradition meeting transformation, nostalgia, and its smash up against futurism. I mean, it was pretty cool. It was a creative reinvention, really.
Darkness balanced by light and hope. So I think that's one of the things that I was excited to see, that it wasn't just a platform for warning, but it was like, hey, let's find light. And our industry is an expression of hope and light right now.
Mashed up with the times, right? Kind of a study. I think, Givenchy, your favorite designer, Sarah Burton, left McQueen and has joined Givenchy, and I think her DNA shine there. I almost think you're going to shift brands.
I think
almost.
So. I can't wait to get
there were just
Givenchy.
Really cool oversized features, a lot of drama, angles, balanced volume, that red. It was pretty incredible. And then Valentino, one of our favorite brands, that whole show, Fireflies, this kind of hope amidst dark times with this fascism on the horizon. They had this whole kind of start of World War II. It was emotional. It was controlled. Beautiful coloration. It was pretty amazing. This guy, Alessandro Michele, who kind of left Gucci and was known for maximalism, I think he really showed his pullback from maximalism. There was more distillation. I think he leaned into unique silhouettes from like the 70s, like ruching and velvet, which I love velvet, really cool stuff. It really showed some restraint with
I
him.
think so, and again, that was one that was pretty fascinating. It started out with this soundtrack that felt kind of ominous, and the music kind of felt that way too, but then it, it was talking about the rise of World War II coming, and then this conversation amongst friends, seeing hope in the fireflies, and the fireflies definitely represented themselves in the clothing. It was very, very beautiful. Dior, once again, playing with volume, playing with pleating, lace, also bringing that vintage in. So people are finding inspiration and looking to the past.
Yeah. Courage, that was a really cool thing. Their invitation was a pair of sunglasses, and the whole theme was blinded by the sun.
Right.
And it was pretty cool. It was very futuristic. It was very minimalistic. Nicolas de Felice, they leaned hard into this retro futurist DNA. Interesting sensuality, minimalism. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's a brand to be watching out. Again, talking about how there was this kind of space cosmic theme through a lot of the shows. Tom Brown, we even saw alien faces, like paired with that prep style that he's so known for. This time I saw a lot of expansion with playing with color and volume here again, layering and mixing of patterns, finding hope in great color. Wow, I was surprised to see some of that.
Miu Miu, vintage 60s.
With a space soundtrack.
Yeah, it was a lot of those soundtracks were really amazing. And then Chanel, in Paris, Chanel is the gem, and Mathieu Blazy's cosmic rite of passage. This whole show surrounded by this constellation of planets.
That was stunning.
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it today. I think, Blazy honored these canonical elements, stuff that was Chanel is known for, this boucle tweed.
Yeah.
Camella's structured jackets, but then he layered them with this sense of loosened proportion. There were these dropped waists, elongated twin sets, frayed edges.
Very elegant. I feel like it was a nice evolution that Chanel's so well known for, but bringing it up to a more modern age.
And you were seeing a lot of different collections featuring feathers,
Right.
faux feathers, more feathered kind of inspirations. And that happened at Chanel too. It was really interesting. I think, Blasi navigated this kind of Chanelness with humility, and it was really pretty amazing. I think, Karl Lagerfeld embraced this theatrical spectacle, and that was
Yeah.
certainly there. Virginie Viard pursued this really subtle femininity, and I think Blasi struck this unique balance between the two.
I agree. So speaking of feathers, you mentioned that Stella McCartney has always kind of paved the way for, hey, let's do better by our fashion. Let's make sure that we're focusing on ethical manufacturing and products. And she did it once again, pioneering plant-based feathers in her collection.
Yeah, she has, 98% of her collections still are fully sustainable. She's been navigating a lot of tough times at the company, but she stays very, very focused on, this whole thing about sustainability. And that's great in a world, or at least a country today, that's looking in a different direction, which is pretty challenging.
That's right. There are some other pivots and provocations that we saw. Houses of Balenciaga, Maison Margiela, Gautier, all introduced new creative leads.
Yeah, there was certainly change. I mean, throughout the entire thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think overall it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what did Paris tell us? There's this kind of custodianship of the brands. There was all that, as we've talked about the last number of episodes, there has been a massive wholesale change. And I think designers have to really understand the importance of custodianship, but then blend it with reinvention. The reason that things are shifting is that, I think the luxury space really needs to, kind of find itself again. And I think they really were working very hard for that. The reinterpretation combined with that. I think materiality as a message was really there. The McCartney pushing that sustainability is important, and then you had Courage hugging these technical skins. They weren't gimmicks; they were kind of declarations of where fashion must evolve.
Yeah.
And it was, even though there was a lot of spectacle going
Showmanship,
on.
I think, like those.
I don't think every show is really about grandiosity. And I think some spoke louder by restraint. Valentino's refinement. And then in the collections, Blasi's tighter edits. Margiela's quiet confidence. I think there's this kind of maturing confidence that's going on there.
Yeah. I totally agree. You've got these legacy names in play, and a lot of times the most exciting moments were those that were rooted in traditions.
Yeah.
Yet honoring new creative direction, reviving these houses with fresh voices. So it really was the future for these brands.
Yeah, I think a lot of the brands also kind of dealt with this sexuality without stridency. Ackerman, Courage, many others made garments that kind of speak to sexiness, not through shock, but through shape, kind of exposure, body intelligence. It's kind of shift from the spectacle toward intimacy. I think in conclusion, Paris as this reflective mirror was less a festival of fashion than a mirror kind of held up to it. One where these, famous house names reflected the tensions of identity, sustainability, and relevancy. The week reminded us that fashion's future lies not in louder clothes, but smarter ones, built on a foundation, reaching for reinterpretation. It was a pretty amazing week.
Pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed watching all of the shows. Wish I could have been there in person. Maybe next time we'll get that
Yeah,
invite,
we'll
right?
be there in a few weeks, but missing the
Yes,
shows. Yeah.
I know. It was really great. I encourage you to go online and check those videos out. They
They're
will definitely
astounding.
inspire you.
Yeah.
Condé Nast is in the news for ending use of new fur across its publications.
Yeah, I think in this whole conversation about a kinder, gentler, group of, we're thinking through this, and we're thinking that, look, we need to end animal cruelty. I do like that people are picking up this mantle, and there's a lot of things, a lot of houses that are really following in line with that. So they're renouncing fur, growing ethical and environmental kind of concerns. So I think it's really a great move.
I totally agree. And now, finally,
the opposite. Sorry, Shein.
We always have to have a counterbalance,
Yeah.
don't we? And this
Yeah.
time, Shein is back in the news, sparking some retail backlash in France. What's
They're
going on?
really trying to grow actual locations, retail locations. They have a firm focus on Europe. It's announcing plans to open its first permanent store in France. In the That's kind of crazy. It's part of this total retail strategy. It's got lots of criticism. I think all French trade groups, lawmakers condemn the move as a threat to local industry, labor standards, citing concerns about Shein's kind of production ethics, environmental footprint. There's even debates about zoning, regulatory barriers, things trying to curb these openings. I think there's growing skepticism, I think, globally about fast fashion, and Shein's got a huge challenge there. They're arguing it's going to promote local engagement and transparency, and we kind of heard a little bit from Shein a couple years ago when we were at the World Retail Forum, and I think that was met on a pretty quiet audience. I think it's they're firmly planted in the space that they are. The world, I think, is kind of changing a little bit around them. Other large retail giants have made pivots, and hopefully Shein will, instead of kind of a greenwashing approach and saying, hey, we're going to be all this great sustainable product, they really start to focus on that. It's hard when you're dealing with really cheap fast fashion items.
Well, it's, the French have always paved the way in this space of sustainability. It really is a part of their culture. So I think if you're going to launch retail in new parts, that might not have been the wisest first choice. But anyway, those are some of the insights that we have this week. It was pretty exciting, pretty inspirational overall. I would say go check out those shows. And, we've got more podcasts coming out soon on our primary platform, Clothing Culture Podcast. Do not forget to subscribe to stay apprised of upcoming conversations. We'll see you right back here next week.